Hi, Monica. Thank you so much. I'm Kristen Miller, and welcome to Candidate Conversations.
Great.
It's sponsored by Fort Bend Voters League. Are you familiar with Fort Bend Voters League?
A little bit.
We're a nonpartisan organization that's really dedicated to voter involvement and engagement. Our motto, in fact, is bringing civility to public discourse. So we want to thank you so much for taking time to be with you today. It's for us to get to know you better and who you are as a candidate and who you are as a person. And I know everybody's schedules are so busy, so I appreciate your time.
Well, thank you. I'm honored to be here today.
So just to clarify, we have Monica Riley. She is running for Fort Bend ISD Trustee Position 7.
Yes.
So Monica, what is your biggest motivator for serving Fort Bend ISD, and what uniquely qualifies you as a candidate?
Well, children. I am very passionate about children and their education. I've been working in Fort Bend ISD as a community leader and organizer for 20 years, advocating for great programs and resources at a various amount of schools. And what makes me unique or different or set apart is I love community engagement. I think community is a really big aspect, and we need to be able to have that at our table, and being able to have voters to take part in the process and feel like they are welcomed, as well as they are helping make some of the good educational decisions for their best interest and the best interest of their children. And so I love community engagement.
So you're a part of that. And what makes you uniquely qualified? Is there any jobs or occupations that you say lend to your strengths?
Yes, well, I actually worked for Fort Bend ISD for 12 and a half years. I resigned in January of this year so that I could run for this position, full-time volunteer position. So I worked in adult education, and I did a lot of community engagement, parental involvement, advocating for programs for parents and children and their education fight, as well as, building those bonds between teachers and administrators, community, as well as children and their education, and letting everybody be a part of the process. So that's one aspect. I understand how the school board works because I've worked for this particular district, and I loved it. And so the other thing is I've been, like I said, a community leader and an organizer for Fort Bend ISD for 20 years, which is a volunteer position. And it's something that I did, just to make sure that kids and teachers and families, had someone that was standing in the gap for them, as well as just being a leader for them as well. When things are going on in different communities, or you're looking for different programs or resources or partnerships, that's what I do. And so I bridge those gaps and kind of like connect people to different, different areas.
What do you think are the three biggest challenges facing the district right now, and what solutions do you think would most effectively make changes in those problems?
Three of the big ones, I think, is a community engagement and how our district engages with, our taxpayers. We need to bring more unity to the table, as well as, better relationships, and we do that through policies. And we need to have a community engagement policy, which is how we're going to operate this. And then we also need to look at some of the different things of accountability and transparency. Those are very real issues that we're dealing with right now, and some of the communities feel like they're not being communicated with. So that's a very big topic, is making sure that we are transparent as a district, and that the stakeholders and the children and our district leaderships, are all a part of the process, and that we're making good decisions, and the community is aware of those decisions that are being made. So transparency is a big one. And then, of course, holding ourselves accountable, making sure that the information that we put out there is accurate, it's precise, and if there's feedback that's necessary, let's welcome that feedback, because it's okay sometimes to get feedback. It can be negative, but there's also sometimes positive that comes out of that negative. So that would be the second thing. And then, of course, for me, the third one would be looking at our budget, and looking how do we disseminate our tax dollars, and how are we giving those funds to our schools, as well as what area is the state lacking in, and getting better funding from our state. So the budget and how the funding works is going to be a really big issue that I want to tackle, being on the board, so that we can make sure that we have equity in our district across the district.
Yeah. Is there any particular budgeting things that you feel need to be implemented, or the district could be doing differently?
What they can be doing differently could be making sure that all schools, have good funding for their teachers and for their resources, as well as how their curriculum is being purchased. We need to be able to look outside of the box when we're purchasing curriculum and we're funding different programs, and also looking at how these are going to have some long-term benefits, for our campuses and
Right.
for our students as well. So that will probably be the biggest thing, is how that budget is aligned with the curriculum, with the teachers' pay, as well as the resources that we're providing on the campus. A lot of our teachers, are spending funds out of their own pocket, which is like we're paying them a salary, but then they're turning around and they're purchasing things for their classrooms, for their students,
Right.
resources, and added, incentives, for their students to do well in their classroom. And I think that we need to, change things up so that our teachers feel like they're well supported, but then we also have what our students need as well for a campus.
And that kind of segues into one of my next questions is the socioeconomic makeup varies greatly from campus to campus within Fort Bend ISD. What can be done to close that achievement gap so every child has an equal opportunity to succeed?
So that's a very good point, because every school is not cookie cutter, and we shouldn't model them as cookie cutter. We really need to look at every campus as a unique and diverse, situation, and how we're going to model what may have been successful at one campus, and
Right.
see how we can, do that same model at that other campus. One of the biggest challenges, things that we can actually turn into a plus, is early learners. Capturing our early learners in those particular campuses that we have those educational deficiencies, or we have those academic achievement gaps, is we can go in and we can start doing things a little bit differently and capturing our early learners, getting them in at 3 years old in some type of a learning environment and a program. We recently was able to get a full day pre-K program, which is one of the team and the partnerships that I worked on to implement full day pre-K at 2 of our campuses. But that's another added incentive that we can work on, is putting in full day pre-K campuses across our districts to help those different families that do have the lower socioeconomics and the different issues that they're faced with. And it also would benefit their families, because they won't have to pay for daycare, during the daytime, and their kids can be in a learning environment. As the kids get older, and they're more defined in their testing and assessments, their reading, we need to really hone in to literacy. Literacy is a big component to children's learning, and then with that literacy, they need to have better comprehension and knowing how to use those critical thinking skills. And so that's where that curriculum piece comes in. But we also need to have mentors and tutorial programs, at pretty much at every campus, to make sure that if there is an area of lack, we're going to close those gaps. We're going to catch them at the beginning, and that no child, will be caught, in the rift of not getting the best education that they possibly can.
Yeah, I agree. What involvement have you had in the community and district that puts you in specific touch? And I'm going to have you answer all three independently, with the needs of the students, with the needs of the parents, and with the needs of the teachers, who sometimes can be forgotten in this.
Okay, so the needs of the students, like I said, I've been doing this for 20 years, so I'm a mom too, and I volunteered at about 10 different campuses, sometimes simultaneously. It was kind of weird. But I enjoyed it, and so being able to give back at different campuses, being a volunteer, I've been a part of the PTOs and PTAs of all those campuses, as well as serving on their campus-based leadership teams. So I may be answering this question all together, but I'll try to keep them separate. But for us kids, helping do fundraisers, that's a big one, because it brings in the funds that we need to purchase different resources, maybe upgrade their playground equipment. It also purchases books, for the kids to be able to read and kind of really focus in on that literacy. I myself personally, I work with other entities and other organizations and individuals to collect books that they purchase, on my behalf, or donate to me, so that I can go and disseminate those to different campuses, and put those either in the classroom for the teacher's library personally, or we give them directly to students that we know, or the teacher will know that that student does not have their own personal library of books at home. And so we'll provide provide those at free of charge. And, and then of course we follow up with the parents to see, what type of resources can we offer the parents. Going into more the parent aspect of what my community about. Like I said, I did adult education for 12 and a half years for Fort Bend ISD, which I absolutely love. So I taught, families life skills and teaching, English learners, how to actually learn English, read English, speak English properly. I worked where we were able to offer them GED opportunities where they could learn the process and get their GEDs, their citizenships, as well as teaching, families how to do resumes and job interviews and, helping them find apartments in a lot of cases, our families, and praying for a lot of our families, parents that would call me up and, need someone to, spiritually guide them. So I had a one-on-one connection with a multitude of parents, thousands of parents that I was able to be connected to. So working with them and working in the community and teaching them also how to advocate for their own kids, teaching them how to have good communication skills with their teacher, how to have a good, effective parent-teacher conference. So as it relates to the teachers, I was also a business partner and a community partner for a multitude of campuses, East and West Side. So one of the things that I would do, I would provide donuts, I would do breakfast for the teachers, as well as offering them gift cards, for perfect attendance. Yes, do free Gene Day if, all their students turn in their homework or something. And so I like to offer, our teachers different incentives to, help them stay motivated and encouraged about the jobs they're doing. We would send, happy faces
for doing great things.
Yeah. And then the biggest thing is, of course, I advocate in Austin on their behalf to make sure that they, are getting the funding that they need for the children, as well as, fighting for pay raises with our legislators.
Now you mentioned ESL, and we're going to go over this briefly because I know we're getting running down on time.
Okay.
But Fort Bend County is a very, very diverse county with more than 90 languages and dialects being spoken. How do you feel Fort Bend ISD can best address the differing needs and the differing education styles to ensure that Fort Bend serves its diverse student body who might have differences in culture, who might have differences in language?
That's a great question. I'm glad you asked it. One of the projects that I'm working on and I'm excited about is hopefully we can move to where we're having a dual language program where students that, English may or may not be their first language, but whatever that language is, they can learn a new language side by side of learning their English, perfecting the English language, where they can learn, English and Spanish side by side. They can learn English and German side by side, or English and Mandarin side by side. And it's a very exciting process, and it's been very successful. And statistics show that the sooner and the earlier that the students begin this, say kindergartners or first graders, they can learn up to 5 languages, at age 5. And so it's exciting that we can have opportunities to properly institute these different programs, as well as offer these different resources. We could also do what's called a cultural-based learning, where students can either electively take classes that learns about other cultures, and I think that's a great opportunity that we can do.
That does sound like amazing, and I appreciate you giving me your time today and people getting to know you a little bit better. Again, Monica Riley, position 7.
Yes.
And remember, early voting, April 22nd to April 30th, as well as Election Day on May 4th. We'll see you at the polls.